Well, it is time. It's time to start diving in and evaluating a host of different business opportunities so that ultimately you could make a much more well-informed decision. So as we begin to evaluate a handful of different business opportunities, we're going to move forward with the assumption that you want to build, grow, and scale your business. So we're going to assume that you don't want to operate as an independent operator or onesie twosie type business where you're systematically just building yourself a job versus growing and scaling a legitimate business that you can increase in net worth and add to your asset column. So in today's video, we are going to start off with none other than the non-emergency medical transportation business. We all know the elderly population is growing, going to double. By the year 2030, there's going to be more elderly people than there are going to be younger people. So obviously, instant opportunities for a host of different businesses. But again, our key objective is to build a business that you can add to your asset column, increase in net worth, establish and build, grow financial freedom and independence, build your honey pot versus enslaving yourself by just simply building another job, serving essentially as an independent operator. So stay tuned and let's start to dive in. Hello everyone, it's Joel Davis with the best $1 million business, and there are 4 key criteria that we want to use to evaluate every business opportunity that we are going to discuss and moving forward. The first one is going to be cost. How much does it cost to get operational? What's the upfront investment to get your business operational and going? Second, what's the returns? What is the return on your investment? How much can you make and how quickly can you make it? Third thing is regulation. Personally, I'm averse. I'm not a big fan of regulation. I want deregulation. Money moves towards deregulation. Opportunity goes hand in hand with less regulation. So everything I do is to find the sweet spot so we can avoid that regulation boogie monster. And then also a key component is employees. If we want to build, grow, and scale our business, clearly we have to surround ourselves with a good, competent team, and having employees does incur a degree of human resource responsibilities, policies, procedures, things of that nature. Now, before we really dive into discussing those 4 key criteria, I want to share with you an email that we got early last week. And the reason why I'm going to share this email is because unbeknownst to this sender, his email really underscores some of the key points that we want to highlight in today's video. Now, he's still in operation. He and his wife own a home care agency as well as an NEMT business. So it's important that I do keep them anonymous, so I do need to not reference their name, their location, or a consulting company that they had used to start their NEMT business. So their email writes, "Dear Joel and team, my name is blank, and I started watching your videos and studying your work late last year. My wife and I have owned and operated a home care agency since 2010 in blank location. And with what I thought was help and assistance from blank consulting company, we launched our NEMT business in early 2019. Although the startup process was fairly straightforward, 3 key things have happened that led to me reaching out to you. First, by following blank consulting company's direction, our only source of revenue has been from Medicaid brokers. And although I have learned firsthand how limited their margins can be, after studying your material, I have come to realize there is so much more work out there that I have never considered or tapped into. Second, when I watched your video where you mentioned the consulting company charging $9,000, it struck a nerve because I suspect you might be referencing blank consulting company. And that is obviously who, as much as I regret admitting it, we used to start our business. And the price was actually closer to $10,000. In fact, the reason why I have waited this long to contact you was because of a combination of embarrassment and not sure of what to do next. The third reason for me contacting you is because of this virus pandemic. This entire event has put a spotlight on and exposed just how vulnerable our business was in being so one-dimensional. The more I have watched and learned from you, the more it puts a knot in my stomach. I have experienced both appreciation and regret. Appreciation for what and how you explain the truth, and regret for me being so naive in how I approached this business. As embarrassing as it is for me to admit, in looking back, I really believe I thought if I spend more money, I would be getting more value and would have a better business. Nothing could have been further from the truth, and I know I have to change our strategy and approach to this business if I even want to make it through this year successfully. Thank you for helping me remove the scales from my eyes. I will be signing up for your one-on-one coaching next week and look forward to helping you with your help righting our ship. Thank you, and then his name. So needless to say, there is a lot of great nuggets and topics to cover just within this one email. And overall, as we move forward, it's interesting because we had plans to launch the Best $1 Million Business, the website, the YouTube channel, and a lot of great content around the first of the year, shortly thereafter. And if God doesn't have a sense of humor, we were delayed by a number of interruptions, existing projects, other things we're working on, and then we were struck with the current coronavirus pandemic, which we're now emerging on the other side. So actually, it turned out to be even better that we delayed and waited, because as we move forward, it's critical that everything we do, first and foremost, in evaluating any business opportunity, we want it to be scalable. We want to be able to make more money, add it to our asset column. We used to always talk about being recession-proof, which is always of concern, but realistically, we need to ensure now that our businesses are pandemic-proof. So as we discuss and move forward, one thing that we always want to discuss is how do we pandemic-proof our business, because chances are good something like this could happen again. This caught everybody on their heels. No one anticipated or expected this. And so many businesses have felt adverse effects. Many businesses in a wide variety of industries. You watching this, I'm sure you experienced a downturn in your business. So everything we do in moving forward, it's how do we build, grow, and scale, recession-proof and pandemic-proof our business. Now let's talk about one of the most important topics, cost. Joel, how much does it cost for me to start an effective non-emergency medical transportation business? One that I can grow, scale, and sell in the future at a multiple. That is our goal, is to sell our business at a multiple in the future to exponentially increase our net worth. Now, before I throw out any numbers or figures at you, it's critical that I paint the proper picture, because in order to build, grow, and scale our business versus building a business that is really essentially just building ourselves a job and enslaving ourselves to a Medicaid broker or something of that nature, it's critical that we deploy the right assets, because the right assets will position us for opportunity. If we don't have the right assets, we can't go after bigger ticket items, bigger ticket sources of revenue. So many people will start their business with their own sedan or a minivan or something of that nature. Oftentimes they're not properly insured. They follow the path of least resistance. They just sign up with a Medicaid broker. The Medicaid broker I refer to as a gatekeeper or toll booth operator, because they clearly and directly control your flow of trip volume. So you really have no control or empowerment over your business. So ultimately, if you wanted to sell a business model of that nature, you really don't have much to sell, because, again, you've just built yourself a job. We want to build a business that can be sold for a future profit, a future multiple. So we need the right assets. Therefore, we want full-size vans, especially in the early stages of your business. The first 3 or 4 vehicles are absolutely critical. They're going to be the nucleus or the platform that you are going to leverage to build, grow, and expand your business. So you need to have the right assets. So we do want to deploy full-size vans. In the future, is there a place for minivans? we can argue that point. Sure, I don't have a problem with that. But especially in the early stages of your business, you want to deploy full-size vans with high top roof, extended doors, hydraulic lifts, side or rear mounted, depending on what we're going for, whether it's wheelchair, stretcher, combination of both, accessibility. Those type of vehicles are going to allow us and position us to go after private pay, contracted service agreement work with key facilities, medical centers, medical care organizations, ACAs, all different types of nursing, rehab, skilled care, assisted, independent, retirement communities, things of that nature. If your vision is to simply deploy your own sedan, a minivan, something of that nature, I would tell you honestly, just go drive for Uber or Lyft. And if that is your goal, if your goal is simply to make a little extra money, work almost part-time or at your convenience, then seriously, you need to be working as an Uber or a Lyft driver. And I don't say it to belittle anybody. I'm just saying it's the reality of the situation. So before you go out there and lay out a bunch of cash, really think about what type of business you want. What is your vision? If you want to build, grow, and scale, sell at a future multiple, then we need to deploy the right type of assets. So with that being said, when I'm working one-on-one with somebody and they're starting from scratch with a new business, if I have to throw out an ideal figure, an ideal number, I'd really like to see them closer to $30,000. Of that $30,000, we would be able to purchase a very good, strong, quality used vehicle, which clearly I'm definitely going to help you find because we want the right vehicle. Because again, your first 3, 4, 5 vehicles are paramount to your success. It's going to be the nucleus, the platform for which you're going to build your business for the next 5, 6 years. So we want to have the right type of vehicles and assets and equipment. So with that $30,000, I know that we can find a high quality used vehicle. We can definitely get take care of administrative costs and fees, marketing expenses. We can really position ourselves to have a good, strong launch that would also include a deposit for your insurance premium, as well as also have a little bit of extra money for operational expenses and getting started. So if I had to be locked down to a single number, I would say if you could make yourself target $30,000. Now, obviously, if you have more, that's great. It gives us more options. It gives us more breathing room. That's great. The more, the merrier. Now, the last thing I want you to do is shell out hundreds of thousands of dollars. Many of you may have watched my previous video where I called it the Field of Dreams strategy. If you build it, they will come. That is not the case. You don't just go out there and purchase a bunch of vehicles hoping that business is just going to come, almost like a turnkey business, as soon as you start a new phone number or go out there and start to pronounce yourself open for business. That's not the way this business works. It is a process. It takes time. So we want to make sure that we have money to not only start and fund the right type of vehicles and assets to deploy, but also we want to have some extra margin in there for operational expenses. Now I absolutely know for sure, if you go to the conventions and you listen to the barking seals who are all wearing their lanyards and having breakout sessions, if you listen to the barking seals at all the conventions, clearly they're going to tell you that's underfunding. You need a lot more than $30,000. But again, everything that I'm going to teach you is under the guise and premise of a controlled growth strategy. I can assure you there are plenty of providers out there who started with a single vehicle. Some of them may have started with 2 with a partner or something of that nature. And they have grown to do exceptionally well, as in 7-figure business, doing exceptionally well. So is it possible? I recently put out a video. Is it possible to still build $1 million medical transportation business? Absolutely. I recently put out another video where an excellent provider bought a business, an existing business on the cheap, and she's projected to do $1 million this year in sales under the pandemic crisis. And she's doing it all with 6 full-size vans. And there's others who I could boast and brag about. But again, what's key, and circling back to how I first started this, what's absolutely critical is that you start with the right type of equipment. Of course, we want to have a strong vision, a good vision. We want to know what our business model looks like. We don't want to enslave ourselves and build a job. We want to build a strong business that it can be grown and scaled and sold at a future multiple. So we need to deploy the right assets. Another side note, two side notes. First one, do not invest money in a conversion van and then try to retrofit the vehicle. Those days are long gone. Now, I know if you've studied my material, I talk about how I did that in the early stages of my business. That was 20 plus years ago. The industry has dramatically changed. Buying a conversion van and then trying to retrofit it is an absolute waste of money. There are so many ADA compliant vehicles that are already properly equipped, that are readily available. In fact, if there's one of few benefits of this pandemic that we just went through, it's there are deals on the market left and right. If someone said, Joel, would you start a non-emergency medical transportation business? Would you enter the non-emergency medical transportation industry? Absolutely, I would enter it. But the question for me at that point is, do I want to start from scratch or do I want to buy an existing business? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there are some phenomenal deals right now. Again, it sounds kind of bad to say, but it's just the reality of the situation. I mentioned in a recent newsletter that there's almost been a type of cleansing in this industry as a result of that pandemic. Now, trust me, I don't say that to be happy or pleased about it. I'm just saying it's the reality of the situation. Many businesses that were highly leveraged, or many of those small independent operators who really serve the role of undercutting the market, they've been wiped out. They've been cleansed from the market to a large degree. Now, not everywhere, as I'm sure, but right now there are a lot of businesses out there that you can literally pick up on the cheap. And you may not buy the entire business. Maybe you're just going to purchase assets. Maybe some people are just quick to liquidate. Right now I'm seeing it all, a whole host of different scenarios. So again, if someone were to say, Joel, would you get into the non-emergency medical transportation business right now? Absolutely. But my thought process is, do I buy an existing business on the cheap or do I start from scratch? So really that comes down to what opportunities you have and your available funds. So going back to the original premise of this extended rant, cost. What is the cost of getting started? Now, when I work one-on-one with you, my goal is to use your existing assets, your existing experience, based upon the dynamics associated with your location to develop the most effective strategy for you to build a successful non-emergency medical transportation business. So if you have more money, awesome. The more the merrier. It gives us more flexibility. But one thing many of you, I'm sure, have already picked up from my previous videos, especially for those of you who I've worked with, I am the strongest fan. I am the strongest proponent. I espouse you do not spend money until you have to spend money. Again, for those of you who I've worked with one-on-one, you know I'm a tightwad. I am a tightwad when it comes to spending money on capital investments. We do not spend money until we have to. Why? Controlled growth strategy. We control our capital investment. We control the cash flow. So I encourage you, do not spend money on an existing vehicle that you plan to retrofit, pay for improvements to make it ADA. There are so many vehicles readily available on the market, many of which have become even more opportunistic and at a great cost as a result, as sadly as it is, of this pandemic. Second, you want to start your business with the right assets, which means you want the foundation of your business to be based on full-size vans. In the future, is there a place for minivans? Sure, you could integrate those in, especially if you have a key contract. Then maybe a key contract for maybe a large volume of ambulatory clientele or something of that nature, then you could argue that point. But even then, I would still be very much reluctant because, again, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I am not a big fan of investing in ambulatory vehicles. The future of the ambulatory fixed route paratransit is gone. It's done. It's going to be replaced by automation. Bottom line, it's already happening all over. I've put a lot of videos out on that topic, so please go back and watch those. But bottom line, I'm not a big fan of investing in ambulatory-only vehicles. It's a waste of money. It limits your capacity. Everything I want is to increase capacity. Increase capacity at the least amount of cost, bottom line. Another thing regarding minivans is, I'm going to be honest with you, they are just not made for commercial use. Again, I understand if you go to the conventions, you listen to the barking seals, you listen to the salesmen, they're going to try to sell you a $50,000 minivan and $60,000 this and a $45,000 that. They're going to try to sell you a $7,000 crash-tested wheelchair and a $25,000 stretcher. That is not how you start your business. I promise you. I could put out so many examples of providers who are doing exceptionally well, who do not overly invest in assets that really are not warranted for the mission of their business. And in trying to pandemic-proof this business, your business, this industry, the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position where you're highly leveraged. I talked about a quote-unquote cleansing of this industry as a result of this tragic pandemic, and so many businesses that have been highly leveraged have had to bankrupt or liquidate the business. As sad as it is, it's just a reality of the situation. So you do not want to put yourself in a position where you're highly leveraged. And going back to the minivans, they are just not made for commercial use. I could tell you countless examples of client providers who've had minivans. They get in a fender bender, and the van is it's down for weeks. If it's a more serious vehicle, a more serious accident, they lose the vehicle. Versus a full-size van, I can assure you, they are made for commercial use. It's just, there's no comparison. So I understand if you go to the conventions and listen to the barking seals, they're going to try to upsell you on all those things. You do not need that to be successful. I promise you. With my client providers, I see their balance sheets. I see their P&Ls. I know who's successful. I know who's not successful. I know what assets they're deploying, what assets they're not deploying. And there's a difference. So when so many people tell me, but Joel, my competitors are all using minivans. Have you seen their P&L? Have you seen their balance sheet? Have you seen their level of capacity? Again, what is absolutely critical is capacity. We want to increase our capacity while keeping our cost at the absolute minimal possible in relation to our capacity. With minivans, you're one-dimensional. We don't want that. So we want increased capacity. Now, I know I've been long-winded on this topic of cost, but it's very, very important because your cost is going to be directly associated with the type of vehicles, assets, and equipment you plan to deploy, which is directly correlated to your vision for your business. And again, our goal, build, grow, and scale a business that we could sell at a future multiple. We do not want to have a onesie-twosie independent operator business or even a small-time business that makes us one-dimensional and all we do is enslave ourselves by creating a job. Our next important criteria, ROI, return on investment. Now on this one, I'm definitely not going to give you a specific number. It's a great question, common question, almost a natural question. Well, Joel, how much money can I make? Well, it really depends on your business model. It depends on how motivated you are. Depends on your location. It depends on your size at any given time, how much you've scaled your business. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is rather than give you fixed numbers, I'd rather give you percentages. Now, what I want to do, and what I tell people is I like to see your margins ideally to be between 25 and 40%. And if you're there, if you're at 25 to 40%, you are doing something right. You are in a very good position with great flexibility. If you're down around 20%, we might be a little area of concern, things that I would definitely want to look at because I guarantee there's some fat that we can cut out of your business, some waste we can get rid of, some things we can clean up. If you're into the teens or even single digits, now we're in a critical zone. If you have a business, for me personally, if I had a business that was giving me negligible margins, then you really got to put yourself in a position and ask, well, why am I doing this? I literally have client providers when I start working with them, and I see that they're one-dimensional. All they do is enslave themselves and sign themselves up to work with the gatekeepers, toll booth operators, i.e. the Medicaid brokers. And in many instances, it sounds great. They're making $40,000 a month in revenue, but the problem is it's costing them $45,000 to make the $40,000. I've literally seen instances where they were doing $80,000 a month in sales with the Medicaid broker, and it was costing them almost $90,000 to bring in. And again, I've seen everything in between. I've seen people are making $5,000 a month with Medicaid, but it's costing them $7,000 to make that money. People become so fixated on the cash flow of the business. We want to keep money. We want to make the money, make the money. We don't want to just generate revenue. So Joel, how much money can you make? I want to see your margins. I'd like to see ideally 25 to 40%. Anything above that, you are doing a phenomenal job. I recently put out the video of the one woman who's going to make $1 million this year in sales under this pandemic, and she is at, I think it was 51. She's on right now. She's at 51% margin. That is phenomenal. I have another client provider who'll do $3 million in sales, and he's in the 60%. Now, why? It's because of his business model. He does absolutely nothing with Medicaid brokers. Everything he does is contracted work. That's it. And again, there's a lot of different scenarios. I could. This video is already long enough, and I'm not even halfway through. And trust me, I could give you examples after examples after examples. So your business model will definitely vary depending on your location, the type of work you go after, as we mentioned in the previous section, the type of assets that you deploy. But in terms of how much you make, how much you're going to keep, will definitely fluctuate. I want to see you at the 25 to 40%. Now, here's what's interesting. And I mentioned this. I've already bounced around this topic. And again, when I read this email that we received last week from this one client provider who mentions that he specifically says our only source of revenue has been from Medicaid brokers. What's interesting about that, to me, and you could argue about the numbers, because I've seen different takes on it, but I've seen everything from 30 to 40% of the non-emergency medical transportation industry is Medicaid. So whether you call it 30, 40, 35, let's say it's 35%. If 35% of the market of the non-emergency medical transportation industry, the overall space, is 35%, well, then what comprises the other 65%? And why do so many people just default to building a business model that is dependent upon Medicaid brokers? Why? I don't know. I for the life of me, I can't figure it out. If I had to come up with one word, and I'm going to be honest, this will offend some of you, and you'll delete and unsubscribe, and I understand, and you'll need to go. It's laziness. It's laziness because people become so fixated on the guaranteed government work. You think like you're a government contractor. You got some real deal. No, you don't. Anybody can get a Medicaid broker. That's why when I see these this client provider who sent us this email and he references this consulting company, ironically enough, it's not the same one that I was referring to in a previous video, but it's close. But so many of these other consultants or advisors or experts or gurus who claim they're going to help you start your medical transportation business and you notice how you don't hear a whole lot anymore about the franchise business model, about NEMT. It's really tampered down and really kind of dissolved or dissipated because there's been so many changes in the industry, and all those people who are trying to build the next popular franchise business model on the back of NEMT have kind of really fallen by the wayside because they're just not essential. It's not necessary for you to buy into a franchise. All they did, their source of guaranteed contracts was all Medicaid brokers that anybody can get. How do you think you get all these independent operators out there who are out there undercutting everybody? It's because all they do is sign up with Medicaid brokers. The Medicaid broker serves as the toll booth operator or the gatekeeper, and they regulate the flow of trip volume. That's it. So people become exceptionally lazy. Exceptionally lazy. So many people will contact our office. Joel, what can you do for us? And all right, well, after you get us started and after we're operational, well, then what are you going to do? Well, then what are you going to do? Well, at some point in time, you got to do something. The problem is many people who just become fixated on the guaranteed work, the guaranteed government contracts, the guaranteed government work, i.e. Medicaid brokers. It develops incredibly bad, lazy habits. Totally wipes out any sense of creativity. So as a true business owner, being a successful entrepreneur, it requires motivation. It requires creativity. You have got to deploy creative, unique strategies. And if all you do is sign up with Medicaid brokers and you focus on only that 35%, 30 to 40% of the market, all you do is enslave yourself while developing, all I can call them are lazy habits, lazy tactics. Creativity's gone. You're not in the position to go out there and solicit facilities, form strategic partnerships, negotiate good contract service agreements, go after state, county, even city, even school districts, or VA type of work. The opportunities are endless, but the problem is if all you do is become fixated on the Medicaid broker stuff, which really encompasses 35% of the market, and again, those numbers you could argue all day long because I've seen a wide different variety, so I can't even tell you what the accurate number would be, but all it does is enslave you, limit your returns, because clearly, and everyone knows it's common knowledge, if all you do is go after the Medicaid work, your margins are dramatically going to go down. There's no question. And consider, how do you scale when your margins are negligible, if not negative? So for those client providers who are generating $40,000 a month through a Medicaid broker, but it's costing them $45,000, $46,000. How do they grow and scale? They can't. They are on borrowed time. So start the watch. They're going to go bankrupt. They're done. In a model like that, the only people making the money are A, Medicaid brokers. Absolutely 100% guaranteed. The brokers are making money. Always. I'll quickly sidetrack. One of the most laughable scenarios I witnessed during that Corona-19 pandemic was when Medicaid brokers were suggesting that they needed to give lower rates of reimbursement to transportation providers. That is laughably ridiculous and illustrates just how much they will oppress you in your attempts to build a successful business, because I guarantee you, absolutely lock, stock, and barrel, that pandemic had no bearing on the volume and the type of money that the Medicaid brokers were making, guaranteed, per trip wise, guaranteed. I'm sure the overall trip volume went down, that's not in doubt or dispute, but their rate of reimbursement never changed, guaranteed. So why are they forcing a loss onto you, number one? The second person who's making money in a upside down or leveraged position like that are your employees. Do you know how many client providers I see who their employees they're getting a weekly paycheck and the checks are going through, but guess what? You're not getting any money. You're not collecting a check, or yours is always in jeopardy of maybe you'll get one this week, maybe you won't get one the next week. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower. Who knows? How do you build and create wealth? How do you build your honeypot? How do you scale a business that you want to sell at a future multiple in the future with such volatility? It's laughably ridiculous. So at the end of the day, if you're in a situation where it's costing you $45,000 to make $40,000, you are absolutely giving away the house. You are paying your person. At that point in time, just give to charity, give to your local church, go down, volunteer your time, go support a nonprofit organization, support them that way, and don't waste your money. Because if it's costing you $45,000 to collect $40,000, you're done. You're clearly not making money. It's obvious, but the problem is, for that actual business owner that's in the eye of the hurricane, their vision becomes clouded and exceptionally limited. All they see is what's right in front of them. And many of you watching this, you can relate to that. And you know it's true. When you are in the eye of the hurricane, all you literally see is what is right in front of you. You don't see the tornado that's circling around you. And time is going to catch up to you, and eventually you're going to have to close those doors. That's why having the right type of assets, the right vision to build the right type of business model to pursue more profitable work with higher rates of reimbursement is absolutely critical. So, Joel, how much money can I make? What's my ROI? How quickly can I get the return on investment? It all depends on you and the type of work you go after and your business model. The third important criteria we want to talk about is regulation. Regulation is important. For every business and industry, we need to make sure we're compliant with all due policies, procedures, regulations. Now, it's important that I give you historical context so you understand why and where there's such a disparaging difference between regulation based on state, county, everything. Now, back in the day, there was much more, I would say generally uniformity in that every state, most states, the high majority of states were regulated at the state level either through Department of Transportation, PUC, Public Utilities Commission, or something else. Now, here's what you have to understand. The Social Security Administration absolutely guarantees 100% that they are going to pay for non-emergency medical transportation for those low income on Medicaid programs. So those who qualify. So just because you're on Medicaid doesn't guarantee you get free transportation. You obviously have to have doctor's orders. There has to be, proof and reason and validation. But for those who qualify on Medicaid, their transportation to and from medical related appointments is paid for. Now that funding comes from a dual source. It's combination federal and state. And it's because there's that dual source of payment, federal and state, why there's such a difference at every state. If it was just the federal government, then there would be uniformity, there'd be a single policy that affects everybody. But again, because the state contributes to the Medicaid funding, the rules and regulations is operated at the state level. So again, many years ago, the high majority of every state operated centrally at the state level through DOT, PUC, or something else. Now, one of the worst things that happened to our industry was Obamacare. And the reason I say that is because it increased the Medicaid enrollment by 139%. Now, you'd think that would be phenomenal, and we should be rejoicing and overjoying in that because we could transport more people on Medicaid, and it's guaranteed money. The problem is, the byproduct of Obamacare is that with an increased enrollment of 139%, who did that really benefit? Medicaid brokers. The Medicaid brokers who were already in existence, it further exponentially exploded their presence, further entrenched them regionally into new states, into new markets, as well as new brokers emerged all over the place. Everywhere, new brokers were popping up. Increasing Medicaid enrollment by 139% was like feeding bloody water to sharks. It was a feeding frenzy, and it still remains today because you see the brutal effect or byproduct of these brokers and their treatment of many of these transportation providers. So with this being said, with the increased competition with so many more brokers on the market, one of the things that they did to become more attractive and more competitive when bidding for contracts at the state level was they were offering fleet management oversight rules and responsibilities. So the states are saying, okay, we're going to save money by pawning off the responsibility to these brokers, and the brokers are going to regulate the medical transportation space. As well as now we can even save even more money because we don't have to regulate it ourselves. So we don't have to manage it, number one. Number two, we don't have to regulate it. So we're going to save costs in two ways. So what happens is these brokers who are now taking over and managing these fleets, obviously it's empowered them, increased their size, strength, overbearing opportunities with regards to the brokers. So really, in many ways and respects, it's now the brokers who are establishing the rules and regulations. And remember, they really only manage about 30 to 40, 35% of the actual NEMT space. But in going back to the regulation at the state level, the states decentralized at the state level and they pushed it to the county level. So let's pick on Florida, for example. You can go into Florida and you can go into one county and there is absolutely zero regulation. So if you want to start a medical transportation business today, there is no governing body. You don't have to apply through the state. You don't even have to apply through the county. But if you go across the street into the next county, that county, you may, like Broward County, you have to apply through Broward County DOT. Go across the street back to the other county. There's no regulation. So it is regulated now in many of these decentralized states. It's regulated at the county level. If you take Texas, for example, same thing happened. They deregulated completely. They decentralized it at the state level. And at one point in time, I think it was maybe in 2016 or 17, then they retroactively brought back that now if you want to apply to one of these Medicaid brokers, you have to first get a Texas provider identification number. Then you can apply. Now, for many years previously, when Texas first decentralized, they got rid of everything. So it's literally, if you wanted to start an NEMT business, just start an NEMT business. There was no rules, oversight, regulation whatsoever. It was all decentralized. And if you want to go after Medicaid provider work, then you would apply directly right through the Medicaid provider. But again, I want to say it was 2016 or 17, they brought back that, okay, now you first want to go through the state to at least get your provider identification number, then take that, then apply to the actual Medicaid broker. So you can see there's a difference everywhere. In New York is still regulated by the state, of course, because many of these blue states, everything has to be highly regulated. So New York, New Jersey, those two states definitely have to be regulated at the state level and commissions. And in New York State, and look, I'm in New York State. I openly admit I'm in the People's Republic. It's an oppressive communist state for many reasons. And when it comes to the NEMT space, you still have to go through Department of Transportation. Your vehicles have to go through semi-annual inspections every 6 months. Every vehicle has to pass an inspection. Again, now if you go downstate, down towards New York City and the island, Logisticare is down there. Different rules, regulations. Down towards the city, you have TLC, which is an absolute joke. I would argue it's just another mafioso taxation, almost a land grab, if you will. So what's important, though, is in considering starting a non-emergency medical transportation business, there's no question. You first want to start your research at the state level. What are the rules and regulations at the state level? And if you find there are none, then you go to the county level. And if there's none, it's simply because they are defaulting to the Medicaid brokers. The states, in many instances, have pawned off their responsibility of oversight and fleet management responsibilities to the Medicaid brokers. They are entrusting to whatever Medicaid broker it is, and it could be Logisticare today. They may lose the contract 2 years from now to MTM, the nation's second largest and worst broker. Logisticare is the first. So they could be passed, Logisticare could lose it to MTM or Southeast Trans or whoever the bidding broker is. And the state is saying, okay, whoever comes in as a broker, you are responsible for ensuring fleet maintenance and management, inspection, random inspections of the vehicles, as well as ensuring that all NEMT providers have properly trained, equipped, and capable drivers. So it's critical. If you're going to start a business today, you want to be compliant with all regulation. I would never encourage anyone to cut any corners, or it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it, because eventually, if you do something stupid, not only is it going to expose you to extreme liability, but eventually it's going to catch up with you regardless. So it is critical that you are absolutely compliant with any possible rules and regulations, whether it's at the state level, the county level. If you go the Medicaid broker route, you got to be compliant with them as well. But bottom line, do your due diligence to make sure you are compliant. I have seen instances where some naive and unsuspecting providers just dive full bore. They go all in. They purchase high-priced vehicles. They listen to the barking seals. They become highly leveraged. They think they're going to set it and forget it. They're going to deploy the field of dreams strategy, only to realize that once they think they're operational, all operations get cease and desist until they become compliant with whatever the regulatory body and policies and procedures are. So bottom line, do your due diligence, make sure you dot the I's and cross the T's, and you are compliant with all possible regulations so you don't have to go back retroactively to try to do it. Because at that point in time, all you're going to do is piss off the powers to be, who are going to be even more overbearing on you and put you under the thumb, and it's going to cost you more time and waste your time, money, and effort. So do your due diligence, do it right the first time. The fourth and final consideration I want to touch on today, and again, I know this has been a long video. For those of you who are continuing to watch, kudos to you. I appreciate it and I congratulate you. But the fourth important point, the fourth important consideration is employees. If you, again, I'll go circle all the way back towards the beginning when I talked about if your vision is to literally just work independently, make some extra money, then starting a legitimate non-emergency medical transportation business really is not for you. Just go drive for Uber or Lyft, because you're never going to be able to build and grow and scale operating by yourself or a 1Z, 2Z, 3Z type business. You're going to need people. Now, in hiring people, this is literally the topic of human resources is its own doctoral dissertation that we could write. But there's some key points I want to highlight. It's easy to say, hire the right people. Really scrutinize them strong, hire slow, hire fast. Everybody has their own philosophy. I'm just going to be honest with you. If you think you're going to hire someone with a PhD, it's not going to happen unless that he or she is retired, long since retired. They're just looking to make a little extra money and stay active. Maybe the guy wants to stay out of his house so he can stay away from his wife or something. I don't know. But my point is, realistically, the vast majority of your drivers are going to be those people that realistically are living paycheck to paycheck. It is what it is. But there's some critical points I want to make in talking about employees. First and foremost, again, I mentioned blue states, red states, and I'm not trying to be overly political, but I'm just trying to underscore that depending on where you live and the politics thereof, it directly affects how you build, grow, and scale your business and the amount of money you make. If you want to argue the point, let's talk about labor. Absolutely critical. Many blue states, New York, Communist People's Republic of New York, minimum wage, in many places it's going to be 15. They have visions of grandeur of getting it to 21, 22, 23 in the coming years, things of that nature. Now, clearly, we know that if you're going to pay a driver $15 an hour, you know that realistically, when you factor in workers' comp, unemployment, FICA, matching funding, associated tax burden, payroll, all that kind of good stuff, you know that $15 really equates to more of the 21, 22 per hour. And depending on your state and the workers' comp multiples and different formulas, will further determine how much you pay. Because again, workers' comp is based upon every $100 that you pay based upon the specific industry. And non-emergency medical transportation would tend to be a higher risk industry as compared to, in regards to a driver, as compared to your secretary. So you know you're going to pay more for workers' comp for your driver than you are your office manager, dispatcher who's sitting in the office all day. It's a higher risk position. It is what it is. Someone in construction, roofing, they're going to pay more as compared to an EMT driver. It is what it is. But my point is this. So many medical transportation providers and entrepreneurs who I work with, they fail to truly understand the impact on their payroll, of their payroll and associated expenditures, and how it affects their bottom line. And it's more than just your bottom line, because it's also your top line. Remember in previous sections where I talked about some people are literally spending $45,000 to collect $40,000. And trust me, there's someone watching this right now. You know who you are. That's exactly what you're doing. You're paying $40,000 to collect $40,000 a month from a Medicaid broker. Now, why is it costing you that much? Because when we look at your payroll, you're being destroyed. First of all, I would argue you're overpaying your drivers. Now listen, let me be absolutely and abundantly clear. I'm going to make the gross assumption that everybody watching this video, all of us, we're all good, hardworking, red-blooded Americans. We all have a good heart. We want to care for not only just our families, but our employees. We love our employees. We're going to have employees, they're going to be with us what seems like perpetually, like they've been with us for years. You're going to have other employees who create nothing but headaches and heartache. It's like a revolving door. When they come in, as soon as they come in, they're going out because they do something stupid or whatever. I've had to fire people. You've had to fire people. But you're going to get some awesome people, and you're going to want to love and care for them. We all have big hearts. And I always, everyone, if you've watched my videos, you know I'm a firm believer. You let people make money. If you have a motivated person and they want to make money, let them make as much money as they possibly can, or want, as long as it's available. How do they make money? Through commission. Through commission, doing evening work, weekend work, holiday work, things like that. But when it comes to hourly pay, understand, I get it. We're all big-hearted, we all care, we're all compassionate, but so many people are overpaying their drivers. And when I say they're overpaying them, I'm not just talking about how much they're paying them per hour, which is very true in many instances. But in many instances, you're keeping people on the clock when you have no business coming in. When there's no revenue, you cannot keep people on the clock. Now again, it's easy for me to say, go back, read my ebook and how we structure our things. Definitely go do that. But it's common sense. And you have to explain this to your prospective drivers and staff when you're interviewing them. You have to explain, this is the transportation industry. And the transportation industry denotes flexibility, as in things could change at any time. You could have multiple cancellations. For those of you who are so invested in enslaving yourself with Medicaid brokers, you know that Medicaid brokers will cancel on a dime. They'll cancel a trip at any point in time, especially if they can find someone cheaper. So they could be on your board, they could be in your system, that trip, for days or weeks, and all of a sudden, right before you're about to dispatch a driver, they cancel it on you because they found someone cheaper. Brokers are notorious for that. And here it is, you had plans to have these trips, the trip volume, and to have your employees weather this pandemic. We want to pandemic-proof our business. We want to pandemic-proof our business. Well, you can't continue to pay 10, 20 employees when there's no business. Again, go back, study my material, learn how we structured our policies and procedures. So when there was a lull, when we took guys off and on, and how we brought them back on, when we took them off, when we paid them commission, you have to manage your numbers. So again, it's critical. When we're talking about employees, we need to ensure that our top line is adequate to fund the labor. We don't want to find ourselves in a position where our top line says 40,000 and our bottom line says 45,000. We're losing money. It's obvious. So we need to make sure that we are invested in the right sources of revenue that give us adequate margin. Do we want to pay our people a lot? We want to pay them as much as we can. Everybody watching this, you're a good-hearted person. You don't want to deny anybody anything. I want my employees to make as much as possible. You want the same, but I need to be realistic. I can't pay them higher than market value. It is what it is. If everyone's paying everyone $12 an hour, I have no problem paying them $12.50. As long as, obviously, it's financially feasible. If everyone's paying $11, I have no problem paying them $12. Whatever, as long as it's financially feasible. I have no problem paying my employees more. One thing that I always took great pride in, many of our drivers in my NEMT business came from my competitors. And in the interview, what was one of the first reasons, if you ask them why, their paychecks would bounce, or my competitor would give them their paychecks and would say, don't cancel it or don't cash it until Thursday. How do you do that to someone? I'll never know. I'll never know. And think that you're going to retain them and further build trust and happiness with your employee-employer relationship. I'll never know. But I can proudly say I never even came close to ever bouncing a check or an employee check, nothing. I always made sure that our finances were well managed, so we were never in a precarious situation like that. But then the other thing that has to be well managed is your time clock. You can't have guys on the clock when no money is coming in. This is where, again, when I'm working with people one-on-one, if we're starting, you're starting by yourself, you're bringing on somebody, we need to really manage that balancing act of how we integrate that person and start to expand our business model, where we add someone working part-time, then start to transition them to full-time while we're bringing someone else on. It's a process. Everything regarding your business is a process. We want to leverage a controlled growth strategy to systematically grow, build, scale our business to sell for future multiples, but it takes time and it is a process over time. All along the way, we need to accurately manage our funds. We never want to put ourselves in a position where we are in a precarious financial situation and we risk bouncing a payroll check, or any check for that matter. We never want to be in a situation where we give someone a paycheck and say don't cash it until Thursday. Now, the other consideration with employees, again, it's not all sunny skies and green grass and the cool breeze across your face. Let's be realistic. I'm going to be absolutely realistic. Employees could be a pain in the ass. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. But again, it's the yin and the yang, the good and the bad. You have to take it. It's a byproduct. You're going to have some people that they're going to interview exceptionally well, and yet here it is 2 weeks later. You cannot wait to fire them because although they interviewed well, sounded well, spoke well, resume looked great, credentials, references all look great, everything checks out to the best of your ability, then once they show up, there's an excuse. They're late all the time. There's an excuse for why they're late. They can't leave their baggage at the door. They're rude, disrespectful, belligerent, whatever. The possibilities are endless. So let's not get it twisted. Maintaining, managing employees as you build, grow, and scale your business is a challenge. And sometimes it could bring great frustration to you. It's just a reality. And many times you're going to take a loss. And when I say a loss, I'm actually talking about you are willing to invest more in them than they are in themselves or into you or your company. And that's a sad, tragic reality of the circumstances. Again, I'm going to make the gross assumption that we are all good, well-intentioned, big-hearted people. We want to help not only our customers, but our people. We want to empower them. We want to give them opportunity. Of course we do. Why would we not? But there are going to be people that when things happen, when put in a situation, they're going to betray you. It is what it is. You could have an employee who's been with you for 2 years and you think everything is great. Then maybe something happens. Maybe they file a workers' comp case or something else. They're involved in some other type of situation. And next thing you know, they'll do anything they possibly can to come against your company and your intentions. Which, as a side note, that is another reason why you want to make sure you always do things by the book with transparency up front. If your employees know that you're going to cut corners, that you'll lie, you'll be deceitful, that you'll do anything underhanded, don't think your employees don't recognize that. Number one, you're green lighting, you're signaling to them that your conduct, your actions is acceptable by them. So if they know that you're lying and you're covering something up and then you're expecting them to be honest, truthful with you, that's a paradox. That's laughable. So number one, if you're doing shady things, if you're running a less than scrupulous business, your employees know. They're watching you. So that's where your leadership This is absolutely critical. And when they see you act like that, you're greenlighting it to them, and eventually it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. In my material, I've talked before about how I literally, and this is exceptionally hard to do, one of my competitors when I had my medical transportation business was a 2-time disbarred New York attorney. 2 times! Now, especially, I can't speak for any other states, but I know here in the People's Republic of New York, it is exceptionally hard, number one, to be disbarred. It is exceptionally hard. But to not only be disbarred once, but twice? You are a piece of garbage. I'm sorry. Joel, you shouldn't talk about people like that. No, yeah, this is a very good adjective. You're a piece of garbage. If you are a disbarred attorney, not just once, but twice, but it gets better. Years later, after being disbarred the second time, and again, he owned a medical transportation and a cab company. Then he and his wife were brought up on criminal charges for, surprise, surprise, Medicaid fraud. Now, I don't know all the particulars. It was a big thing in the news here in New York. Now, I don't know all the particulars. How do you perpetuate Medicaid fraud and you have throughout your business? Because your staff, at least your internal office staff, has got to know that you're defrauding the government. And if you're defrauding the government, are you defrauding them? Are you shaving their paycheck, shaving their hours, things of that nature? You're greenlighting. So I'll never understand how someone can do that and then you want real collusion. How do you bring your employees and your office staff into that process? Because that speaks to your leadership, and this is the climate that you're cultivating, that if you're scheming and scamming, they could do the same. And there's no trust amongst thieves, because if you're scheming and scamming the government, trust me, your employees who you're hoping and anticipating and greenlighting they scheme and scam, they're going to be thinking that you're doing the same thing to them and their paychecks as well. So there is no honor, there is no integrity or trust amongst thieves. So it's critical that as the owner and operator of your business, be an effective leader. Employees, are they a challenge? No question. And the more employees you have, absolutely. It's exponential. That's why having sound policies, procedures, crystal cut, clear, black and white, not only is it an essential implementation to protect you and protect your business, it's an imperative function for your business to operate as an efficient system. So Joel, in starting your non-emergency medical transportation business, well, first and foremost, do I want to buy or do I want to start from scratch? That's definitely a question I seriously would ask myself right now, post-pandemic. But if I'm someone who I don't want to deal with employees, well then honestly starting a medical transportation business really isn't an ideal scenario for you, because if you want to build and grow and scale, not just NEMT, but really any business, you're going to need employees. Well, let me finish by apologizing for such a lengthy, long-winded video. I apologize, but I really don't. Trust me, I could go on and on, writing doctoral dissertations, not just about the NEMT business, but business in general, especially using these 4 primary fundamental criteria: cost, your investment to get started, ROI, what's your return, how quickly you're going to get it, rules and regulations, and then your sales force, your employee force, your labor force. They're all important, critical criteria that you want to use in considering and evaluating any prospective business. Bottom line, I hope you do. Even though we've been long-winded, I do hope that you appreciate this video and you've gathered some content. Go forth, conquer, deploy some of the knowledge, tactics, and strategies that I shared in this video, because if you do, I'm going to see you at the top.